Hi everyone, I'm Alberto Orador. I'm an undergraduate student of economics at Fabra, and now I'm going to present the adverse selection problem, which arises in the principal-agent framework, and which basically consists in the fact that the agent holds some private information that can affect negatively the principal, and there's no way of signaling this asymmetric information. And well, after this presentation, I will solve problem number 4 of Macho Perez's book. And then I will present a brief application that I thought of the moral hazard problem that I thought it would make sense in certain situations to improve the principal's payoff. So let's begin. Yeah, basically in the moral hazard, the adverse selection setting is going to be defined this way. You have two types of agents, one that is efficient and one that is inefficient. And the difference between them is this zeta, which is the marginal cost of exerting some effort. And in particular, the efficient type has a lower marginal cost. And then you have a principle which can be a company, for example, that wants to maximize its profits, that are defined as the effort that, the output that comes out of the effort that the agent exerts, minus the payment that he has to make to the agent. So basically, according to exercise number 4, we have two types of agents here with two different utility functions, which are defined as the utility of the efficient is the wage that he receives minus the cost of the effort is simply effort to the second power. And then similarly, the utility of the inefficient is the wage he receives minus his cost. And this is the bigger marginal cost compared to just one. Okay, and the profit function of the principal is simply is defined in this particular case as the effort any of those agent chooses, so I with the sub-index I, minus the wage he has to pay to the agent I. Yeah, that's it. And so the problem is how to maximize that objective function when there's no way for the principal to know which agent he is facing. So traditionally, we are going to approach this problem in the traditional manner. First, we're going to see what would happen in a first test, which is in the case that the principal does observe the agent type, and then what happens with actual adverse selection when he is not able to observe the type he's facing. So, we're going to keep this. In the first, in the first test scenario, we just simply have to maximize this function subject to just one restriction, which is the participation constraint. the principal only has to make sure the agent does accept the contract, does participate. So basically, assuming all agents are rational, we only have to compensate for any outside opportunity they might have, and this is important. Here mentions that the reservation utility, which is the utility any agent would get from the outside opportunity or any outside opportunity, in this case, is set to 0. So basically, he doesn't have. We could interpret this as the fact that he doesn't have any other outside opportunity. So it's either take this contract or don't do anything and get a utility equal to 0. So basically, we have to set equal, or in fact, we have to establish the following inequality. Sorry. Which is for each type of agent. So in particular, we are focusing on the efficient type now. That is what happens when the principal faces an efficient type and wants him to participate, to take part in this transaction. Basically, is subject to this minus. Okay. And at the optimum, because the principal can control the wage he pays, so it's going to be simply okay. Then this turns into and now, quite simply, as any maximization program, we have to perform the first order condition, which is simply the derivative of the objective function with respect to basically the only variable we have here, which is this, and set equal to 0. This implies in the first place. And similarly for the other type, we have, for the inefficient type, we have to maximize. And at the optimum, okay. So this turns to and the first order condition is simply is equivalent to in the first place. So, something important. This automatically implies a wage as defined here. So it's in this case it's simply the effort raised to the second power. Same thing here. Yeah, 2 times. Just okay. Okay, so this is what would happen if the agent type was observable by the principal. There would be those contracts, those efforts and wages, and the agent, because he is rational, would accept. So, yeah, now what happens if the principal is not able to tell what agent is facing? So that's, in fact, the actual adverse selection problem. So the way we have to solve this is similar but a bit more complicated. The principal only knows that, well, in this particular case, there's 50% of efficient types and 50% of inefficient types. So, yeah, we can label this with mu, which is the proportion of, for example, the efficient types, which is 1/2. So that's the only information the principal has. And yeah, and he also knows this, the utility functions of the 2 types of agents, and then he wants to first make them participate, and second not deviate and choose another construct which is not intended for their type. So basically, we add here an incentive constraint or incentive compatibility constraint, which is sometimes called as well. So yeah, now the maximization problem becomes yeah, this is for example, yeah, this is for the efficient, in case he's facing an efficient type, and that's the revenue he would make, the profit. So, as usual. And then we have to account for the possibility that he's facing also an inefficient type of agent. So that's actually the expected profits he would make when dealing with an agent and offering a contract. Okay, so yeah, there are 4 constraints now instead of only 1 for this type. We have participation constraints and 2 incentive constraints. Participation constraint for the inefficient is as before. The utility of the inefficient cannot be negative because he could choose to have an utility equal to 0 and be better than otherwise. So this translates to simply and similarly, the participation constraint of the efficient is then now we have incentive constraint for the inefficient, which is we take his utility and we have to make sure it's at least equal what he would get if he makes the principal believe he's an efficient type, which is receiving the E-type weight, weight, minus the effort of the efficient, but take into account that this utility for exerting any particular effort is bigger than the utility that the efficient type would experience. So that's the key point here, that this is maintained. He cannot conceal this. There's no a way for him to do it. And yes, and similarly, the constraint for the efficient is his utility has to be greater or equal than what he would get if he makes believe he's an inefficient type, which is receiving a wage Wi minus the cost of exerting the inefficient effort, but considering that his marginal cost is lower. Okay. Yes. Now we can see with some easy algebraic computation that this is redundant because whenever this holds and this holds, this would hold as well, because once you have this, there's, well, that's an inequality that must be satisfied. But assuming it is satisfied, then you can simply say that this is bigger than, obviously, this, right? And this, if this is satisfied, is bigger than 0, which means that this is bigger than 0, which is the same as this. So it is redundant if this and this are satisfied. So we can cross this one out. And also, this is not necessarily redundant, but most of the times it happens to hold whenever we get the optimal solution. So what we're going to do is to assume it is satisfied, and then we're going to check back that our solution indeed satisfies this constraint. So basically we're going to use this one and this one. So now we're going to use the mirrorless trick 1971, which basically uses the envelope theorem and makes it quite easier to make the computations and solve this problem. So yeah, basically this trick consists on the fact that you have effort and wages, and you change this into effort and utilities. And it all begins by saying that the utility of agent, the inefficient type, well, is equal to this. Have it here. And this is equivalent to saying that okay. And for the E-type, we just have that. Okay. And we know that because of the participation constraint that of the inefficient type that we are using, this must be satisfied, and the utility of the E-type, well, of course, cannot be 0. It has to be more than 0, or at least equal. Okay, it cannot be negative because otherwise it can get the conservation utility, which is 0, and not contracting with the principle. But we can go one step further and say that using the incentive constraint of the efficient type, we can say that this has to be larger than then this, which is what he would get if he's an inefficient type. And now we use a small trick, which is to say that this is equal to this, and so we have the plus. This is sometimes called, called this way, which is the difference in marginal cost between the two types, which in this case is simply this. Okay. So the utility of the efficient type has to be bigger or equal to the utility of the inefficient plus a positive amount, which is sometimes called, or many times called, information rent, which is what the principal must pay the efficient type to make him reveal his type by choosing the right contract. So now with all this information, so in the optimum, of course, this is going to be 0, because as I said, the principal can manipulate the wages, and it is possible for him to offer a wage such that it is true. And then, of course, this becomes, using these two files, this becomes that. So the utility that E-type is going to get is equal to the difference in marginal cost between his type and the other type. So with all this information, we can simply construct our maximization problem. And this time is going to be just this maximization, which is going to be, by the way, an unconstrained maximization problem, because we are going to incorporate the constraints into the objective function, and then take partial derivatives and find out the optimum efforts. So yeah, this is what he gets. So yeah, minus the wage that he would pay, that the principal would pay, which in this case is this. Minus the wage, it's this is 0, so simply okay, we know that this is a thing, so simply we can substitute, and we can just do this. Okay, so this is just a, let's say, final step before taking partial derivatives. That's what we're gonna do now. For the E-type, we have the first order condition, which in this case is derivative pi with respect to this, equal to 0. It's simply this, and then you get minus just this down, then multiply it, okay. Yeah. In the second best, because we are now in the second best, the case with asymmetric information. It's 1/2, which is the same as before, and this is a fundamental property, which is called non-distortion at the top, that says that efficient types are going to be required to exert the same effort, regardless of the fact that the principal can know their type or not, because this is what is optimal. And then everything else is going to adjust to make this, in fact, the optimal solution. And in case, note that in the second best we cannot directly derive the weight, because the weight of the efficient depends on this, and this depends on the effort of the inefficient, which we don't know yet. So for the inefficient, we have similarly. Okay. Minus 2. Okay. Which is equivalent actually to say minus 3 e or ei equals to minus 1. Okay. So these are the effort levels that are optimal under these conditions, and those two effort levels imply certain wages, which are the following ones. For the efficient, in the second best, the wage is again this, which is that. Which is 1/36 plus the information rank, which is simply 1/4. And this simply is 10/36, which is 5/18. Okay. And for the inefficient, the wage is this one, this is 0, goes up, and then it's just 2 times this raised to the second power, which is 1/18th, in the second best. So that's it. It probably would have been a good idea to keep the efforts and wages of the previous case, but wait a second, I might have them here so that we can compare. Okay, so the effort level for the efficient type in the first best is the same as in the second best, which is 1/2, and the wage for the efficient in the first best was, you can check all this if you replay the video later. So and in case of the inefficient, the first best solution for the effort was 1/4, and the wage was 1/8. So we can right now compare compare the effort levels and the wages in the first best with the second best, and from here we can derive some fundamental conclusions, some properties that always hold in any adverse selection problem. Which the first one is, as I said, non-restriction at the top, which says that the effort level for the efficient in the second best is the same as in the first best. Then the second fundamental property is that the effort for the inefficient in the first best, so in the case that the type is observable by the principal, is greater than in the second best. but also because we are gonna set his utility equal to 0. If we require him lower effort, we are gonna also pay him a lower salary. So of course the salary of the inefficient in the first best is bigger than in the second best, because in second best it's required to exert a lower effort. And the contrary applies to the efficient, because he's gonna have a positive utility in the first best with an effort of 1/2 and a wage of 1/4, he gets a 0 utility. But because now he's going to make a positive utility, the wage has to be bigger than 1/4. So the wage of the efficient type in the second best is always bigger than in the first best. There are some few more fundamental properties, which is, well, yes, basically, as I said, the utility of the inefficient is always the same, equal to 0, and the utility of the efficient in the first best is 0, because the principal can know that he is efficient and offer him an optimal contract so that the principal can extract all the rents possible from him. But in the case in the second best that he cannot know if he is efficient or inefficient, he has to offer him a wage, a contract such that his utility in that case is strictly positive. So basically, and also, well, finally, there's a trade-off between information extraction and efficiency, because in the second best, because of course the principal would like to decrease this and this as much as possible, so he would like to make this go down. Okay, but he also wants to increase the effort of the inefficient as much as possible. So those two goals are not compatible, because the utility of the efficient is increasing in the effort of the inefficient. So that's a trade-off between extracting information and having an efficient contract. And now finally we're gonna just present briefly an application of modal hazard problem. Which involves something called likelihood ratios, and is an alternative approach that I thought it could make sense in certain situations in order to increase the profits of the principal in situations in which there's modal hazard, which means that there's only one type of agent, but the principal cannot perfectly monitor the effort that the agent is going to exert. So that's a problem, that the agent might work hard or not work hard depending on the incentives the principal provides. So in a modal hazard problem, we always have a matrix like this one. For example, actions or efforts. It's the same. Let's say efforts. Low effort, high effort. Okay. And then we have low output, high output. And this you have in these boxes you have probabilities. The probability that if low effort I get low output, and the probability here that if I exert low effort I'm gonna get high output. So basically this is conditional probabilities. Exert given EL, probability of XH given EL, and then probability of XL given EH, probability of XH given EH. So likelihood ratio is this one. That fraction is the likelihood ratio. So likelihood ratio is equal to that fraction. And the traditional approach says that when this goes down, meaning that the probability of getting a high outcome when exerting low effort is very low when compared to the probability of getting a high outcome when performing good, when performing exerting a good effort, high effort. So it's the traditional approach says that when this goes down, for example, this is 0, so it's impossible to get a high outcome if you exert low effort. So if this is a low number, this fraction is a low number, you're going to have to provide the right incentives for the agent. So you're going to have to increase the difference in the payments for this when the low outcome. I mean, if you wanna encourage the high output, and this is very low, this fraction is very low, you're gonna have to provide two very different wages, conditional on the outcomes that you observe. So the alternative approach that I thought would be not to let's say pay more when this is pay more if you observe the high output. If this is very low, but pay, let's say, let's say a low wage, but instead the principal would have to invest some money in developing technology that makes this ratio go down. For example, if the technology is improved, let's say that, let's think it the other way around. If you have very bad technology, perhaps no matter how hard you try, you're gonna get always the low output, for example. Or so basically the effort doesn't play a role here. But if you provide a very good technology, then your effort can have a very important role in determining the quality of the outcome. So basically the principal could invest some money in making that happen. So basically invest money to make this approximately equal to 0. Okay, 0/1, 0. And then basically whenever he observes, the principal observes the low outcome, he's gonna know that the agent chose this level of effort, and then he's gonna pay very low. And when he observes the high outcome, the high outcome, I don't know if I said high outcome here. Well, if he observes the low outcome, then he knows that it's because he chose that one. And if you observe the high outcome, it's because he chose that one. And in either case, here he's going to pay a low salary, and here he can pay also a low salary. Because in a way, the moral hazard problem has disappeared, because now the effort is observable thanks to this investment in technology. And in some situations, it could pay off to make this investment instead of offering two separate wages to induce the high effort.